In our session today, one of the things that will come up is about values and value systems, and the fact that each of us arrives at our own set of values, largely influenced by family and culture and the times. But really, you have your choices as to which things you choose to value in your life. The Course speaks about this often as your treasure, of the things you cherish, the things you hold dear. And it is a philosophical question. How did you arrive at these value hierarchies where some things are very valuable to you and other things not so much? Oh, we'll address that as we go into the reading today, which is the final section, chapter 13, the peace of heaven. Hello and welcome to Miracles on High Plains. My name is Chanaka, and Julie is our reader for today.
Forgetfulness. Forgetfulness and sleep and even death become the ego's best advice for dealing with the perceived and harsh intrusion of guilt on peace. Yet no one sees himself in conflict and ravaged by a cruel war unless he believes that both opponents in the war are real. Believing this, he must escape, for such a war would surely end his peace of mind, and so destroy him. Yet if he could but realize the war is between real and unreal powers, he could look upon himself and see his freedom. No one finds himself ravaged and torn in endless battles if he himself perceives them as wholly without meaning.
So it brings up the topic of war and peace, of conflicts, of being ravaged, of harsh intrusions of guilt on peace. And so we just want to make sure that it's understood. We're talking about inner conflicts where the purpose here of the ego is to intrude upon your experience of peace. It's the harsh intrusion of guilt on your peace. And that con- inner conflict is sustained only when we misplace our faith into believing that the guilt is real, believing both opponents in the war are real. To undo this is to be released from guilt, to become free, and to do so is necessary to realize the wars between one real element, the peace, and one unreal element, the guilt. And so you probably know by now all of chapter 13 has been centered around that topic of guilt is a facade, it's an illusion, it's an insanity that the ego wages on your peace. And the error that is involved is the ego has convinced part of our mind to believe in the guilt, to believe that the guilt is justified and that its laws are warranted in our mind. And once we withdraw our power from that belief, then we can become free of the conflict and free ourselves of this inner battlefield. You'll, as it says here, he perceives them as wholly without meaning. The illusions of inner conflict are not substantial, are not realities.
God would not have his son embattled, and so his son's imagined enemy is totally unreal. You are but trying to escape a bitter war from which you have escaped. The war is gone, for you have heard the hymn of freedom rising unto heaven. Gladness and joy belong to God for your release, because you made it not. Yet as you made not freedom, so you made not a war that could endanger freedom. Nothing destructive ever was or will be. The war, the guilt, the past are gone as one into the unreality from which they came.
Mhm. So you might recall that in the timeline point of view of past and future, that guilt is associated with narratives, stories of the past. The ego would have us continue to focus on the past, questioning where the guilty parties were involved and what punishments are deserving, etc. So, from the Holy Spirit's point of view, all that is gone. It's not a present reality. What is true in the now, the present now, is that we are free of the timeline and we enter into the eternal line where Holy Spirit's perception prevails, where we're no longer captives or prisoners of the timeline. And so these things are in the now. Um, the war, the guilt, the past are gone. And that's a big leap for most people to accept because they're imprisoned by the past. But know that it really is as simple as what we're describing. Perhaps for your mind, it may seem a lot to surmount, but it really is no more complex than to let go of all faith and belief that the past has meaning and live fully in the present. And when we do that, the past goes into the into the state of no longer a reality. It's an unreality. So this is not a complicated message. Let go of the past and live in the present.
When we are all united in heaven, you will value nothing that you value here. For nothing that you value here do you value wholly, and so you do not value it at all. Value is where God placed it, and the value of what God esteems cannot be judged, for it has been established. It is wholly of value. It can merely be appreciated or not. To value it partially is not to know its value. In heaven is everything God values and nothing else. Heaven is perfectly unambiguous. Everything is clear and bright and calls forth one response. There is no darkness and there is no contrast. There is no variation. There is no interruption. There is a sense of peace so deep that no dream in this world has ever brought even a dim imagining of what it is.
Mhm. So this paragraph introduces what to me seems like the most important framework for this section here. And that is the distinction between what is valued in heaven versus what we would value here. And so we have to learn, we are learning through A Course in Miracles, what the the things that are valued in heaven. And of course, each of us has our own value structure here. But if you were with us during the session where I suggested for a moment a thought experiment where you imagine yourself to have transitioned off of this world, out of this body, not magically, but we know that at the end of your biological life, we're going to transition out of the body, and that you're now a resident inside heaven. And from that point of view inside heaven, you look back on life on earth and wonder what is it that you now value from earth. And so it winds up being a very short list because your car, your clothes, your house, your body are all of no value to one in heaven. But we would submit that those persons that you love, you would still hold them, your relationship to them as valuable, and little else. And so that is a way of realizing there's a distinction between what's valued in heaven and what's valued here on earth. And ultimately, the Holy Spirit will encourage us to re examine all that we have cherished in this world, to question once again, what is it that is my treasure here in this world? You could think of it philosophically as asking yourself, what is my purpose for being here? What am I doing here? It's in accordance with the values that you find. And so that's a profound psychological shift, of which often takes people many years before we let go of the idols, let go of the identification with the past, let go of identification with our body as the center of our identity, and a number of other things that we won't go into right now. That occurs gradually over a period of time until we have re-examined all that we value. Just know that in the big picture, the creator is the source, the true and lasting source of all values. And the ego would prompt you to go your own way and fabricate an alternative set of values. And so there's a distinction there. Again, this is not something that necessarily comes quickly to full acceptance psychologically, emotionally, in one's mind, because those things that we have valued in the past, by the very definition, seem to be important to us. And the undoing or the letting go of what they mean to us unfolds at whatever pace you are willing to let those unvalueless things go. In return, God exchanges all the values that are available in heaven, which are beyond number, including a sense of peace so deep that nothing in this world can even suggest what that peace is like.
Nothing in this world can give this peace, for nothing in this world is wholly shared. Perfect perception can merely show you what is capable of being wholly shared. It can also show you the results of sharing, while you still remember the results of not sharing. The Holy Spirit points quietly to the contrast, knowing that you will finally let Him judge the difference for you, allowing Him to demonstrate which must be true. He has perfect faith in your final judgment because He knows that He will make it for you. To doubt this would be to doubt that His mission will be fulfilled. How is this possible when His mission is of God?
So this is a chance to take a deeper look at what we mean in the course by something being shared. And usually there's level confusion around this because, as we grew up as children, we were thought to share our toys. Maybe we share our popcorn or share our ice cream with somebody else. So we were taught on that kind of material level of things. The Holy Spirit is really not concerned about those things, but is concerned about that which is of value in heaven that can be shared with all of creation. And so joy can be shared by everyone. Happiness can be, love can be shared by everyone. There are abstract qualities of the holy mind which are all, without question, all available to be shared by every member of creation. And so that's one way in which heaven differs so much from this world. Nothing in this world is wholly shared, but in heaven, well, here's what we learn. As we transition from false perception to holy perception, perfect perception, we begin to understand and catch a glimpse of what we're talking about here within the holy mind of God. Holy perception shows us what is capable of being wholly shared. And it's the beginning of, here's the concept of appreciating with your heart and soul those things that matter most within the heaven of your highest dreams. And so sharing is the nature of creation. The Creator shared His divine attributes with all creation, and they were given to us that we might share them amongst each other. And so that's one way to access or understand what they mean by something, what is capable of being wholly shared.
You whose mind is darkened by doubt and guilt, remember this. God gave the Holy Spirit to you and gave Him the mission to remove all doubt and every trace of guilt that His dear Son has laid upon Himself. It is impossible that this mission fail. Nothing can prevent what God would have accomplished from accomplishment. Whatever your reactions to the Holy Spirit's voice may be, whatever voice you choose to listen to, whatever strange thoughts may occur to you, God's will is done. You will find the peace in which He has established you because He does not change His mind. He is invariable as the peace in which you dwell and of which the Holy Spirit reminds you.
So some of these things are hard to describe, or they're not hard to describe, they're abstract. But if you imagine you're for a moment passing through the hours of your day, like right now we're experiencing this time, but in 2 hours from now, this moment will be gone and you'll be on to another moment. And we're all passing through the hours of our day. Well, divine peace, the gift of inner oneness and peace, is forever available to us in the now. It is not something that you can access in your past, nor access in your future, but it is always and forever. It's invariable as the peace in which you dwell. It's always available to you in the now. So in that sense, God's will is being done in the now, but as is often the case, we miss it. We pass over. Our awareness is such that the peace is obscure to us because our faith is lent to dwelling on the past or projecting a imagined future, that we lose the sense of the gift that's in the present. And so when we say God's will is done, I think it says it here on this page, although I'm missing it. Oh, yes, God's will is done in, but that's not to say that you will recognize the peace of God in the moment. That's a matter of both mind training and of presence of choice in the moment. And so this will be, as we go forward into chapters 14 through 18, this will be the central idea: is how do I catch the gift of the present? What are the ways of living my life, of being conscious, so that I stop missing the gift that's available and I more frequently become aware of those gifts?
You will not remember change and shift in heaven. You have need of contrast only here. Contrast and differences are necessary teaching aids, for by them you learn what to avoid and what to seek. When you have learned this, you will find the answer that makes the need for any differences disappear. Truth comes of its own will unto its own. When you have learned that you belong to truth, it will flow lightly over you without a difference of any kind. For you will need no contrast to help you realize that this is what you want, and only this. Fear not, the Holy Spirit will fail in what your Father has given him to do. The will of God can fail in nothing.
So true. So the statement here, contrast and differences are necessary teaching aids here. As you probably recognize, I use that as a fundamental element in teaching, to contrast what the ego would do from what the Holy Spirit would do. Because in the state of misunderstanding, we need that contrast so that we can clearly distinguish the laws of spirit from the laws of ego. That's not to say, however, that learning by contrast is forever necessary Once truth comes, then it's no longer necessary to teach by pointing out the differences. You will need no contrast once truth comes. You will need no contrast to help you realize what it is that you want. But during the undoing phase, where the nonsense, the insanity of the ego, is still ringing, echoing within our thoughts and our beliefs, then we definitely need to learn to make a distinction. And the Holy Spirit's primary function is to help us to distinguish for ourselves so that we can choose again. As is often said by, I've heard it so many times by miracle students, I didn't know there was an alternative. I only knew of the way that the ego persuades. I had no idea there was this whole alternative perception available from the Holy Spirit. Well, that's the purpose here, is to make that distinction, to teach by contrast and differences, and then allow you to decide at your own pace when you're ready to let go of the ego's beliefs and exchange them for the Holy Spirit's teachings.
Have faith in only this one thing, and it will be sufficient. God wills you be in heaven, and nothing can keep you from it or it from you. Your wildest misperceptions, your weird imaginings, your blackest nightmares all mean nothing. They will not prevail against the peace God wills for you. The Holy Spirit will restore your sanity because insanity is not the will of God. If that suffices Him, it is enough for you. You will not keep what God would have removed because it breaks communication with you, with whom He would communicate. His voice will be heard.
So, if we recall again this idea that we have finished our life here on this world and are now residing in heaven, and all those experiences of our past, our regrets, our guilts, our judgments are all so far gone that they are meaningless. They all, your blackest nightmares all mean nothing. And certainly they will not haunt our mind, the mind that's in the heavenly state. Well, let's extend that metaphor now to where you don't have to die and leave your body to experience that heavenly state, but that you can experience it even now here on this world. For it's already has been experienced. We would say that heavenly state already dwells within you. And therefore, the ability to no longer be haunted by your nightmares, to see them as meaning nothing at all, that ability may not be developed fully, but it already resides within you. It's the power of you have to choose to change your own mind. And so nothing can keep you from this heavenly state except for your choices. but nothing external can keep you there. It's, mind you, practically speaking, whether or not you attain a more sustained experience of that heavenly state here while in the body, or perhaps you only have some glimpses of it from time to time. Those are all choices within your hands. The gift of experiencing that heavenly state where the past no longer haunts you and you're free. We call it spiritual freedom. That is already at hand. In fact, that is the will of God for you, that you be free in that state. And it's only our continuing to lean towards the ego's guidance that would hold us back.
The communication link that God Himself placed within you, joining your mind with His, cannot be broken. You may believe you want it broken, and this belief does interfere with the deep peace in which the sweet and constant communication God would share with you is known. Yet His channels of reaching out cannot be wholly closed and separated from Him. Peace will be yours because peace still flows to you from Him whose will is peace. You have it now. The Holy Spirit will teach you how to use it, and by extending it, to learn that it is in you. God willed you heaven and will always will you nothing else. The Holy Spirit knows only of His will. There is no chance that heaven will not be yours, for God is sure, and what He wills is as sure as He is.
Mhm. So there's a guarantee here. I think this is really an important point. There's a guarantee here that the Holy Spirit will teach you how to use this peace, and by extending peace to learn that it is in you. Chapter 14 begins that lesson in how you and I and everyone else can experience the peace, share it with others, and learn, become confident, trusting that that peace is within us, to be able to draw upon that peace, that gift. Um, so um, let's go back for a moment and revisit this idea of spiritual communication, the communication link that God placed within you. A sweet and constant communication. So ordinarily, when we use the word communication, our minds typically revert to the idea of words or possibly vocalization. Um, and that would be a very one-dimensional view of communication. So I'd like you for a moment to consider an expanded understanding of what spiritual communication is. And so consider for a moment you're experiencing a sustained moment of deep and profound peace. A just quiet moment where literally peace fills every ounce of your being. And notice no words are necessary. And yet, the profundity of the communication is undeniable. So when we talk about the sweet and constant communication God would share with you, yes, sometimes it's reduced to one-dimensional thoughts and words. We're not excluding that, but its source comes from beyond the English language, comes from beyond language at all. In fact, its source comes from beyond human thought. And so it transcends all those one and two dimensional experiences. Yes, it's sometimes reduced to those one or two dimensional experiences, but it often takes many other forms. And so, in your own private meditations, just be aware that there's much that occurs without the use of symbols and words and vocabularies. It, but yet it's still a profound experience.
You will learn salvation because you will learn how to save. It will not be possible to exempt yourself from what the Holy Spirit wants to teach you. Salvation is as sure as God. His certainty suffices. Learn that even the darkest nightmare that disturbs the mind of God's sleeping Son holds no power over him. He will learn the lesson of awaking. God watches over him, and light surrounds him. Can God's Son lose himself in dreams when God has placed within him the glad call to waken and be glad? He cannot separate himself from what is in him. His sleep will not withstand the call to wake. The mission of redemption will be fulfilled as surely as the creation will remain unchanged throughout eternity. You do not have to know that heaven is yours to make it so. It is so. Yet to know it, the will of God must be accepted as your will.
Mhm. There's a term that might not be familiar to you called pre-echo. So you know what an echo is. There's a sound and then it hits a distant surface and comes back later after the original sound. Well, a pre-echo is really different now, arrives before the original sound. You hear the echo before you hear the primary sound. And that's a hard to describe uh, in the natural world, but A Course in Miracle uses that technique frequently. It's used it several times in this reading we're doing today. It's pre-echo of what will come in the next chapter. So when it says you will learn salvation because you will learn how to save, my interpretation is they're referring to what we're going to learn in the next chapter. They're uh, echoing a truth that is not elaborated on here at this time, but will be shortly. In movies, this might be called foreshadowing, but I like the idea of pre-echo. I'm just fond of that. because of the voice of the Holy Spirit has an echo. Um, and so the Holy, how will we do that? Well, the Holy Spirit wants to teach us, and because salvation is the gift of your freedom, of your happiness, of your real relationships, of your being in the present, of your being free of guilt and experiencing forgiveness and healing. So it's the plan. And that involves becoming free of our nightmares and living, learning the lesson of awakening. And so, all of that, this is the close of this chapter and the lead into the next chapter. They're making reference to that promise here, but it would be easy not to know that in this paragraph here, they're referring to what's to come shortly. But like all good novels, you know how one chapter ends on like a cliffhanger note, and you just have to almost a really good writer will end the chapter that way. So you really want to jump into the next chapter right away because you want to know, find out what happens next. This is somewhat along those lines. Um, what is our part? Well, let's see. Actually, we're going into another emphasis here. Um, Creation remains unchanged throughout eternity. You do not have to know that heaven is yours to make this so. It is so, whether you know it or not. Yet to know that creation remains unchanged throughout eternity, to know that the will of, in order for you to know that beyond, without any doubts, the will of God must be accepted as your own will. This whole course is ultimately around this final state, which we could call total willingness, where the will of God's plan for creation, his laws of love, his plan to have us heal, for the sonship to return and be united once again, that plan of atonement, to completely accept that as your own will, that's what you want to be a part of. This is what we refer to in the Course as total willingness. And when you're totally willing, you will know that creation remains unchanged throughout eternity. Julie?
The Holy Spirit will undo for you everything you have learned that teaches that what is not true must be reconciled with truth. This is the reconciliation the ego would substitute for your reconciliation to sanity and to peace. The Holy Spirit has a very different kind of reconciliation in his mind for you, and one he will effect as surely as the ego will not effect what it attempts. Failure is of the ego, not of God. From him you cannot wonder, and there is no possibility that the plan the Holy Spirit offers to everyone for the salvation of everyone will not be perfectly accomplished. You will be released, and you will not remember anything you made that was not created for you and by you in return. For how can you remember what was never true, or not remember what has always been? It is this reconciliation with truth, and only truth, in which the peace of heaven lies.
Mhm. So there's a really big clue here. That clue is to the question, how can I find the peace of heaven? How can I access it? Because we've been talking about the peace of heaven is already within. How can I access it? And it will talk about it in many ways. In this paragraph, we're framing it in the context of reconciliation, of two different kinds of reconciliation. I'm going to walk through this a little bit because, again, it teaches by contrast. There's the ego's reconciliation and the Holy Spirit's reconciliation. The ego's reconciliation we're all familiar with because it's everywhere in the world. And that would be a teaching that there are these two opposites, love and fear, lies and truth, and that they both are all blended together into a reality, so to speak. They are reconciled and they make up the world is both evil and good. It's eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's the belief that both are equal, both good and evil. When I say good and evil, what I really mean is truth and illusions, or love and fear, are the belief that they are on equal foundations in our world, that they are reconciled into one reality. That's what the ego wants you to believe, that there is no heaven where there's only love and only truth and only goodness, but that it's all a mixture of chaos and peace. Um, and so the ego teaches that the two coexist on an equal footing. The Holy Spirit teaches that only one is true, the other is a lie, the other is non enduring, that the darkness does not exist in heaven. It even teaches that the values that people often are attached to as idols in this world, that they mean nothing in heaven, so that it's pure. Um, if you want a visual, just think that it's pure. What the Holy Spirit teaches is heaven is uniform and consistent. The word we used earlier was invariant. It is all of one substance, not a mixture of two separate opposite substances. And so now that we've made that distinction, know that in order for the Holy Spirit to teach us, if we believe that these two opposites are both equally real, the Holy Spirit has the teaching function of helping to us to distinguish them and let go of the unreal, so that's all that's left is that which is true. Um, and she knows how to do this. She knows how to teach this. It's not difficult to understand, but it does require your willingness to believe that it's true until such time as you become confident and trusting of her teachings and reach the point where you know that it's true. So the Holy Spirit offers a very different kind of reconciliation from what the ego teaches. And that is a reconciliation where all things are reconciled, because all persons are equally worthy of love. All are equally blessed. There are no value hierarchies where one is valued higher than another. There are no conflicts. They are all united as oneness. So forgive me for this simplistic image, but sometimes a simple image does drive the point home of which grain of salt here is any better than any other grain of salt. They're all perfectly equal. And so that's the goal of the Holy Spirit, to undo the teachings that we've learned that tell us that the lies must be reconciled with the truth, that the things that teach us that death must be accepted along with life. And again, we're not talking biological here, we're talking your soul. The teachings that nightmares must coexist alongside with happiness. The Holy Spirit's task is to undo that, and making these distinctions is the first step in doing that, so that you then, at your own pace, can let go of that which is a teaching of the ego, let go of the nightmares, of the belief in the power of the past, the belief in guilt. Let all that go at your own pace. And that's what is left is only truth. And that's where the peace of heaven lies, when there's only one thing left, only truth. So that's as far as that's the end of chapter 13. Hopefully, that's the end of guilt, although I wish it happened that fast for all of us. That would be my prayer. But for most of us, this is a gradual process of letting go of things that we had cherished, our own dreams, our own nightmares, letting them go at our own rate. So much to look forward to in what the Holy Spirit has to teach us in the chapters ahead. And I think you'll find it to be one of the most powerful messages. I'll go out and say one of the most powerful messages anywhere, ever, is the power to experience a holy encounter with another individual. We'll look forward to picking that up next week. Thank you, Julie, for reading. Thank you all for your presence. God bless you, and namaste.
Thank you, Julie, for reading.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you,
Have a
Jonica.
good night.
Okay.
Thank you, Johnny.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Peace and love.
Jonica, do you have a moment?